What up, though, people? It's your boy Detroit Kool-Aid, and we got to talk about these Detroit Pistons, man. Look, they win a big one last night, but first, Mr. Jeff Iafrady, he's already on the Morning Woodward show, and he's crushing it. This show is going to drop around a few hours after he's going to be up there showing. We got a little content coming later as well. Be on the lookout as well for some content with Mr. T. Foss. And as always, let's get that drum roll going for the legend Detroit News, Rob Beard. Hey, yo. Now, look, we got to talk about this game that the Pistons just won last night against the Denver Nuggets because it was the first time they won in Denver since 2016. And I keep telling people, since we traded Chauncey Billups, there's been a curse of Chauncey on us, man. It's been bleak playing the Denver Nuggets, period, just in general, let alone having not won there since 2016. Now, look, James Edwards of The Athletic, he tweeted out with the 110-108 win over the Nuggets. The Pistons ended a 7-game losing streak overall in the season. They snapped a 5-game losing streak against Denver, and they won, obviously, in Denver, as I said before, for the first time since 2016. And they grabbed their first road win of the season. And if you, like me, are saying, whew, it's because James put that in there too. Look, that's a mouthful, straight up. And it shows that the Pistons, they got a little bit more heart. They got a little bit more hustle. They got a little bit more toughness than their record would indicate. The win last night, it was one of those character wins because it's not like Nikola Jokic didn't play. Jokic played. He played. The NBA MVP was out there last night, and he did work. 31 points, 12 of 16 shooting, 7-11 from the free throw line. But the Pistons had an answer all night, and we're going to talk about one of those answers, the one of the key factors or X factors of the game. Somebody beyond the guys that you saw out there scoring. Obviously, the bench is going to be one of those key things as well that we're going to get into. But the Pistons now they improved to 4-15 on the season. It's not the start that anybody would have hoped for or wanted, especially when they started off stating competitive. They want to compete every single night. They want to make sure that every single team that they come across isn't just circling them as, hey, you know what? This is the night we can rest our stars. This is the night we get an easy victory. Last night is where I actually started to see the workings of that compete every night type of a team. And they've had some other victories and some other, flashes of this throughout the season. But last night's victory, I kind of saw their defense. It's still weak in some areas as it relates to the perimeter. But I saw improved and increased hustle. I saw improved and increased try. Not that these guys were loafing before, but I thought that there was another gear that they could get it up to. And I believe that last night's game showed that. It looked like they did not want to lose that game. It looked like last night they were tired of losing. Bogey, especially. He's coming from a situation where he was winning in Utah. And he was taking a back seat in some regards. Now that we see how talented he is, and in some regards to do so. Sometimes just playing the 3-point shooter role, sometimes being able to get off the chain a little bit and be that dog that we see him being right now in Detroit. Last night he started off that game hot. And that's what I want to see with Bogey. That's why when we talk about who to bring off the bench, who to start, I feel like since Bojan is somebody who can, as soon as you put him in the game, get going, you know what? When Sadiq gets back, you got to kind of see what this man can do in the starting lineup right away. And if it's not going for you, you can always go right to the bench and bring somebody in. But let's see here. The game last night overall, my keys to this game, that the Pistons are starting to establish an identity. What I mean by that is when they get a guy like Marvin Bagley back and are able to run that pick and roll, and Jalen Duren, a guy who we hope can get to that level of proficiency within the pick and roll game, as good as Marvin Bagley is, if not better. I believe Jalen Duren has an opportunity to be tremendously better. I think that his basketball IQ is showing to be a lot better than we thought, or a lot better than I thought it was going to be. But Marvin Bagley in this pick and roll game is something absolutely ridiculous. I tweeted about it last night. There was a play where Bojan was coming across. He was at the top of the key. He floated over to the right. Jaden Ivey kind of went backwards towards half court, but stayed on the right side of the court. Bojan began to make his ascent over the Bagley pick and roll from right to left. What I started to notice with this play design is with Jaden Ivey up, his defender had to stay up near the 3-point line. Bojan's defender has to stay up. Marvin Bagley's defender had to stay up. They left Killian Hayes over to the left. And let me see if I can bring up the picture so I can remember who it was on the opposite wing. It looks like in this play it was Isaiah Livers. What this did was it created a flat. When you want to stretch out the defense, create cutting lanes, create shooting opportunities. And in this opportunity, in this look, this is kind of the best for everybody. Now, me personally, I would probably flip-flop Killian Hayes and Jaden Ivey. And so you all can see this. I wish I had a better view. But if you can see it here, you see Jaden Ivey all the way up the top near the free throw line. I mean, near the half court. You see Bojan and Bagley about to do the pick and roll, and you see the shooters Killian on the far side wide open. He probably should have cut there, and Isaiah Livers on the other opposite wing as well. Now, what's interesting about this play is that how much gravity, just look at that, how much attention the Marvin Bagley pick and roll attracts. Why? Because last year, Cade Cunningham and Killian Hayes, when he got into his little, his nice stretch, his nice flurry, those guys were able to lunch. Those guys were absolutely able to eat off that pick and roll. And we saw the Pistons offense take a step in the right direction when they got that Marvin Bagley acquisition in the middle of the season for Trey Lyles and Josh Jackson, or a bag of chips and some Skittles. And I like Skittles, so shout out to Josh Jackson, man. He'll be the Skittles in that trade package. But yeah, it's just every time I saw the Pistons go towards the pick and roll with Marvin Bagley, you see the defense react and respond accordingly. And what I'm hoping is that this doesn't become something that they just do only with Marvin Bagley. What I see them doing now is starting to run Jalen Duren through the same motions, through the same plays, and he's starting to realize, you know what? I'm just as tall as Marvin Bagley. I might not have as much as the girth as and the weight on me yet, but I got that natural ability. I have that natural strength. I have that natural athleticism. I can get up for the rock. I can play through the contact. It's like he's just now beginning to realize that he's really, really good. And I forget who said it. There was a quote last night where somebody stated that, that the more that they see Jalen Duren playing, the more they realize he doesn't know how good he can be just yet. If I find that quote, I'll definitely give it to the right, right individual, credit the right individual. But, that's something we've all been saying. This season started off with us wondering, hey, is Jalen Duren somebody that's going to have to spend any time in the G League? We believed and assumed Jaden Ivey as the 5th overall pick, our number 1 pick, somebody who we thought could have gone top 3. And with what he's doing this year, he's proving he should have gone and could have gone top 3. But with Jalen Duren, there was questions about, how raw he was. Dwayne Casey said on opening night when they drafted him, on draft night, that he's very raw, very athletic, but they see a future or an archetype, a comparison to Sean Kemp. And there was some questions about, if Jalen Duren is going to spend some time down there. I got the opportunity to ask, at the Motor City Cruise Media Day about that, because last year the Motor City Cruise had several Detroit Pistons that were down there. This year, I don't think that they're going to have that opportunity that much at all with Jalen Duren or Jaden Ivey. Those guys are bona fide NBA players, and should I say NBA starters, if we want to lump Jalen Duren in with that. I believe that we can. But I want to see this team continue to kind of find this pick and roll identity and not just be so reticent on the pick and roll that it's predictable, but something that begins to play and open up opportunities for everybody. So like in that play that we saw earlier, say if it was Ivy on that side where Killian was, that would have been the perfect time for Bojan to get the pick and roll from Bagley. Ivy cut back door, throw the lob. Nobody was back there to protect, and they couldn't be because the other guard was up so high on the play. And that should be a key to the defense of what to do. But if they sag off too far, Jaden Ivey has shown in recent games to be able to hit that 3 at a pretty impressive clip. And I want to be able to bring up that real quick before we get into Jalen Duren. I really, 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 really want to talk about him. He was the focus of my post-game article up on Woodward Sports. You can check that out right now on the website at woodwardsports.com. But Jaden Ivey, let's see. I'm going to see what his 3-point shooting is the last at least 5 games or 10 games. Because I've seen marked improvement over the last, since he's drained 12 shots. Let's see here. What is he shooting? So over the last 7 games, Jaden Ivey is shooting 33.3% from three. He had a couple duds in there. One game where he had, let me see here, 3-point attempts, 9 3-point attempts, only hit one for 11%. Had another one where he had 7 3-point attempts, had for 14%. The other games, he hit 4 threes for 100%, 6 threes, 67%, 5 threes. He's out there getting it, man. He's out there getting it. Let me see the threes made: 4, 1, 1, 1, 4, and 1. So, there's a couple games there where I feel like he needs to rein in how much he's shooting from three. There's a lot of times where the defense is settling back, and I believe that Ivy, because of the lack of mid-range game, and the fact that the Pistons aren't getting all the calls that they should, I believe that sometimes he is settling for that three. That's why I would like in that play to see him flip-flopped, or if Bojan does get that pick and roll from Marvin Bagley, kick it over to Ivy, who can take advantage of his speed and get right to the rim. But Jalen Duren. Let me see here. Before we start to with Marvin Bagley, aside from the elite pick and roll aspect that he's brought to the game, there was like 3 or 4 straight buckets he had at one point. He had a really, really good game. Let me just bring up his stats here as well from last night, because he's still getting into game shape. He played 22 minutes, 14 points, 3 rebounds, 2 blocks last night, which is something I want to see more out of him. Being able to get that 1 to 2 blocks, to consistently average at least 1.1, 1.3 blocks per game, which is showing that he's trending towards 1 to 2 blocks per game rather than 0 to 1 blocks per game. And with as active as his hands are, you want to see him get a few more deflections than he does. The rebounding is where I kind of shudder a little bit, because his team is struggling. They didn't have anybody in double-digit rebounds last night. Bojan actually led the team with 9. Duren had 7 in 26 minutes to go with 4 points. So, yeah, I want to see Marvin Bagley continue to do more in that rebounding game. I want to see him be able to hustle a little bit more. I want to see him be able to go after. It looks like, he gets into the paint a little bit, bangs around, but he's tipping it more than actually going up with 2 hands and bringing the rock down. I believe that you will see, Marvin Bagley's, point totals, his overall effect on the game go up when he starts to be able to get a few more rebounds per game. Now, I think we are safe and clear to move on to this Jalen Duren piece. And what's impressive about Jalen Duren is where we have the criticism with Marvin Bagley to do a little bit more on the hustle plays, on the defensive plays. Not that he's out there loafing or being lazy, but I just don't have that complaint with Jalen Duren. I would like to see him more involved in the offense, but I wonder if his post moves, his paint moves, his moves against NBA defenders are limited right now, while he's still learning to play that offense. And this is what they meant when they said he was kind of raw, athleticism, more so than polished NBA offensive talent, sort of like a Keegan Murray or a Jabari Smith. These guys came with a little bit more polished game as big men. Paulo obviously plays a little bit different than Jalen Duren. But you guys get the point there. He has a lot of natural ability. He passed that triage, which is what we were talking about coming in. Can he do that? Active defense, rebounding, and putbacks, easy buckets, dunks, pick and roll game. Jalen Duren has looked really, really good. He's fared much better. Now I got the article up here, man. He was a plus 14 off the bench, which was a team leading. He also had 4 offensive rebounds last night as well. So 4 of his 5 rebounds total were on the offensive glass. Jalen Duren was hustling. I would like to see him get a little bit more busy on the defensive glass as well. But the team in general, like that he's playing with, was going after those boards as well. When the bench came in, they were hustling after it. He played a lot with Kevin Knox, who also came off the bench to have 8 rebounds. And so that bench, they really, really put it in. Alec Burks had 21 points of 7 to 3, 13 shooting off the bench in 21 minutes. Kevin Knox, 17 points, 8 rebounds. But Isaiah Livers, he started the game, so that left the bench. You would think a little short, but no, the other guys stepped up. They really did. Nahami Diallo, 3 of 5, 16 minutes, 3 of 5 shooting, 6 points, 2 rebounds. Corey Joseph, he played solid minutes. Played solid minutes. This is what you want to see out of Corey Joseph, and this is why he is on the squad. When you have a guy down, it's good to be able to have a good backup on the squad. And every time that I hear like an opposing broadcaster calling a game, they talk about the professionalism and they talk about the ability of Corey Joseph. They talk about the fact that they would like to have him on their squad. And the Denver commentators talked about Corey Joseph last night, as well as the resurgence of Alec Burks, who they believed was not going to amount to much coming out of Denver. So I'm glad that he was able to have that game last night. He was popping off last night too, guys. He was looking great. I liked it. These were the things that we were talking about when we said, let's let this team get Marvin Bagley and Alec Burks back. Obviously, again, those guys played huge positions, huge roles last night. I think we're clear to talk about fully this Jalen Duren thing, man. But yeah, the 4 offensive rebounds, it was huge, man. And that's why I wanted to look beyond just the 4.7 rebounds. A lot of times people look at those stats and say, hey, that doesn't jump off the screen. But there was a lot of times when Ben Wallace would have games where he was scoring 4 points, 6 points and getting maybe 10, 11, 12 rebounds, 13 rebounds, but he was playing the entire game as well, not just 26 minutes. You see when Duren gets in there, those rebounds just find his hands, man. He doesn't have as much instinct rebounding the ball as Andre Drummond and Ben Wallace, but he has as much skill. No, he has as much instinct. He doesn't have as much of the IQ where to be on the floor. Andre Drummond and Ben Wallace, that was a skill of theirs. No matter what you felt about them, obviously Ben Wallace more so had other aspects of his game that made him what he was, especially on the defensive end. But with Jalen Duren, I want to see him get a little bit more physical. I want to see him put his body into players. There's a couple rebounds he left out there last night. I'm going to continue to talk about that. If there's any criticism that I have of Jalen Duren, it's that use your body to separate your defender from the basket, to separate whoever you're boxing out from the basket, to separate whoever you're picking on the pick and roll, whoever you're sealing out, seal them out on that pick and roll to give yourself the best opportunity to have the rock, because you, with nobody between the basket, is 2 points or 2 free throws every single time. And I know you come from that school of Rasheed Wallace, Jalen Duren. That's that school of dunk everything. Give yourself the opportunity to get in there and understand you are the freak of nature out there, man. The absolute freak of nature, athletic beast. I like bro, you running like a gazelle out there, sprint down the court in like 3-4 steps. Jaden Ivey's down the court in like 3 or 4 dribbles, man. It's awesome to see what these rookies are doing. But one of the things that I don't know if it went under the radar or not, but Jalen Duren was playing good, solid defense. In the first half, he played 10 minutes. In the second half, I was wondering if they were saving him to be able to play more minutes, and effectively that's what it wound up being. He wound up getting 16 minutes in the second half of that game, and he was guarding, Nikola Jokic pretty good. He was guarding him pretty good. I was actually impressed. Oh, I remember the first time that I took notice of it. It was actually, Jokic scored, and it was a couple times where I felt like, Jalen Duren should have put a little bit more physicality into him. But I believe that Jokic is a little bit more crafty. You put your a little bit more physicality into him one way, all of a sudden he's playing your momentum against you, making you look like a fool. And he's dunking. So I get it. It looked like he was trying to fill him out, trying to figure out, who is this guy? This guy is the MVP of the league for a reason. So there was a couple plays out there. I'm like, man, come on, get into his chest a little bit or foul him. But Jalen Duren's trying to play with himself. I get that. But he had a couple good games, a couple good possessions there where he held his own. One of those was actually on a play that Jokic scored on, and I believe that Duren should have had a little bit more help middle. But I get it. The defensive scheme during that time was everybody stay home, play man to man, so that you don't get beat by the 3-pointers. They were more comfortable with Jalen Duren playing man to man against Nikola Jokic than they were sending a double team. This is a rookie, folks, a rookie. What's interesting about that is this is the same strategy employed that they used to utilize with Ben Wallace. I'm seeing the same types of traits that if he works hard, I'm not saying this guy's going to be Ben Wallace, because Hall of Fame, legendary, not just Detroit Piston, but NBA and basketball player, college legend out of Virginia Union. I've had the opportunity to walk and play in that gym. And I'm telling you, dog, you can smell Ben Wallace and a legacy all through it. Those players, man, whether their seasons are up or down at Virginia Union, and they're hustling because of it. But I'm starting to see, out of Jalen Duren, the ability to have that same impact on the game as well. And in flashes and in spurts, we're able to see it. I just want him to know it. I'm hoping that whatever his limitations are right now as a young offensive player, that the team is able to work around it to still get him time. I know Coach Casey is huge on, not letting these players develop bad habits, bad playing habits. It's something that kept Killian Hayes kind of out of the regular rotation once they put him on that bench. And especially early on, they would have him bring the ball up, give the ball to Blake Griffin, go to the corner. Why? They wanted him to play within his means, play within what they knew his skill set was at the time, within his confidence level, not make too many mistakes, learn while you're actually out on the court. But it did cut into his playing time. Now, somebody like Cade Cunningham came with a little bit more pizzazz, a little bit more basketball IQ, a little bit more to his game, can hold his own. They let him play. Jaden Ivey, they let him play a little bit more. Because these guys are showing a little bit more as it relates to their overall natural basketball IQ, skill, and talent. Duren, we know that he had natural ability, and that's going to get him on the court, especially if he can rebound, get on the court, give him 30 minutes. He's going to lead your team in rebounds. You give him 30 minutes right now, to me, he's your best paint deterrent. There's nobody better on this Pistons squad right now at deterring shots in the paint, to me, just with the eye test, than Jalen Duren. He's getting into that middle, and I believe it makes Nerlens Noel a lot more expendable. Not that he was giving you much right now, but I don't know how much he wanted to give. I don't know how much he wanted to play right now. Out of a few games I saw a few things to like, but he still looked like he was a little bit out of shape. But with the reports that he wants out, I'm not surprised that Jalen Duren. I wouldn't be surprised, especially with Jalen Duren's proving and showing what he is. But the play of the night for me, no, Nikola Jokic scored over Jalen Duren to play middle. Jalen Duren, he showed well to try and get his hand up to block it. His hands flung back and hit Jokic accidentally, right? That's what we're gonna call it, man, on accident. And Jokic started barking at the ref, and then all the way up the court, and when they got to the Pistons side of the court, just started barking, yelling at him and yelling at him. I'm sitting here like, you know what? This is what I want to see. Let's see that dog in Jalen Duren. Let's see him go back. Let's see this. But you know what I saw? I saw what I believe a mature player would do. I saw what I believe Ben Wallace would do with a guy that he believes I'm at least on your same level or, better than, honestly. He ain't do nothing, bro. Jalen Duren was just like, bro, I don't even mean like he didn't even crack that smile. Sometimes when you hear the trash talk, when you hear the heckler or you hear that guy that just torched you talking, and he's rocking a baby, he's doing this, I'm gonna beat you. Oh, and one, bro, you weak, you this, you that, and you get that little, you act like you're not listening, but you like, you know what I'm saying? Jalen Duren didn't do any of that. He just went down the court and was just like, it's a basketball game going on right now, fellas. Okay. All right, let's get it. And to me, that was the underrated play of the game because those things don't show up in the stat sheet. That's what Jalen Duren was all game. He was feisty. He made it tough on these guys in the middle. He wasn't just, a traffic cone. He wasn't just kind of flailing his arms out there a couple times. I'm not going to say no names, but some of these guys, they just kind of flail their arms to reach in and it's cheap fouls. I'm ready for this squad to get to the point where they're stop giving up and ones. Stop that. Foul these guys and make sure they know that you fouled them. Man, don't give these guys the opportunity to flex. Have these guys going to the free throw line wondering like, yo, you know what? Hold on, man. Let me stretch out a little bit. Ooh, man, I remember my college coach, man. I coached Dunbar. He was one of the best high school players out of Washington, D.C. You can look him up, man. Calvin Dunbar. He was absolutely cold. And he coached me at my school, Columbia Union, in Tacoma Park, Maryland. And he man, bro, he would say the same type of stuff. He was like, man, do not let these people just get an and one on you. If he would take you out. He didn't care who you were. Don't just let them. He was like, if it does, man, they gotta earn that. They really gotta earn that, man. Look, I'm not advocating for injuring people. I'm not advocating for trying to hurt people. I'm not, no. But the level of physicality that Detroit basketball represents, the Detroit basketball that I was a fan of, the Detroit basketball that introduced me to the love of the game, the bad boys, the Detroit basketball that introduced me to, no matter if you're up or down, no matter if you have a good team or not, you still go hard. That was a Grant Hill Till era. That's why I rock with those jerseys. The era of the going to work Pistons, the Jerry Stackhouse era, the junkyard dog. Man, come on. There's just a certain way that you play. Jason Maxill, William, the William Bynum experience, the Will Bynum experience, man. His time here, like that's what I'm gonna see out of this team. And I see some guys like Jalen Duren, I see some guys like Jaden Ivey, I see some guys like Cade Cunningham, who they always play at their pace, man. And you always know what you can get out of them. What I want to see out of the rest of this team is that they do that too. That across the board, not that I believe anyone's just loafing, but I want to see these guys across the board bring a level of physicality, bring a level of that Detroit grit and that Detroit toughness, so that every single night, even if you wind up losing the game, even if you wind up losing it going away, man, at least these teams know, we're in it for a physical battle. We're in for not just a team that has some upstart youth on it, not for a team that's just, oh, they got some cool pieces there. Oh, cool, Bojan can shoot. That's the only guy you got to worry about while Cade's out. Nah, man, get in there and make sure these guys know who you are. And that's what I love. And I've noticed with Stu out, a little bit of that goes away. Before, when they were able to swap Jalen Duren in for Beef Stu, rather than the two bigs now being Marvin Bagley and Jalen Duren, you didn't see much of a drop off from that physicality. You did see a drop off as it related to the skill set, because obviously Beef Stu is a little bit more polished offensive player and defensive player than Jalen Duren, a lot more polished actually. But as it relates to that tenacity, the types of blocks you would see Stu getting and the types of blocks you would see Jalen Duren get, the types of shots they would be able to affect, you saw that more with them, with Stu and Duren, than you see with Bagley and Duren. I want to see a few more of these guys get there. I want to see Isaiah Livers. I want to see him get a little bit more out there. Get into his bag defensively. I know that there's another gear for Isaiah Livers. He started the game last night, and I know there's another gear for Killian Hayes. He's starting to get back to it. I want to see Killian Hayes really, really, really commit to being a poor man's Jason Kidd. Nobody feared Jason Kidd scoring. We all feared the fact that Jason Kidd could go out there and absolutely wreck your team without scoring at all, man. You knew that he was gonna go out there and probably fall just short of a triple double, or just get it, man, like 8-9 points, but pop off with like 17 assists and 13 rebounds, or 13 assists and 15 rebounds. These are the things that we saw. And you know what? He approached that happily. He said, if I'm gonna be out on this court, I can't be a liability. And he wasn't. And it got to the point that since he was so good at these other things, and it's not like he could not score, it's just certain aspects of his game, his shooting, just kind of it just and the way that the style of basketball was back then, bro, his playmaking, his rebounding, it proved better. His full court passes, his half court passing, um, he was able to make guys who I don't believe were as good look really, really good. And this is what I want to see Killian Hayes commit to. This is one of my side notes, one of my notes that I had here. I want to see him really, really, really commit to being that, getting into it defensively, letting everybody know. Patrick Beverley, it continues to have this reputation, no matter what you think of him, but he continues to have this reputation of a defensive minded individual, because that's how he goes out there to play, whether he's good or not. I actually think that Killian Hayes has the opportunity to go out there and be a better defensive player than Patrick Beverley. I think that right now, as it relates to the actual skill of defense, I think Killian Hayes affects the game a little bit more. But because of that physicality, or the lack thereof, with Killian Hayes, there's some players out there where his confidence instantly can get shuttered. And that the guys you're playing against, do they have to think twice about you in your defense? Do they have to think twice about where you are on the court? Do they have to think twice about, you know what, this guy is he's dangerous in the passing lanes. But yeah, Jalen Duren, man, look, that was my player of the game. You know, I know that there are guys who did score more. Bojan Bogdanovic, he really put up some points in the first half last night. He was 22 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. And traditionally, I would give my player of the game to him. He was consistent all night. Marvin Bagley again, 14 points, 3 rebounds. Jaden Ivey, 7 points, 5 assists, 6 rebounds. He found ways to stay active. He's found ways to stay involved, despite the offshoot night, 3 of 11. Killian Hayes, he looked like how I wanted him to look like a little bit. 9 points, 9 assists last night, 4 personal fouls, physical defense, active offensively. I was telling somebody, despite the fact that he did shoot 1 of 5 from the three, a couple of those threes, step in, Killian. Take the pump fake, step in. A couple of those were ones in which I believe you had the defender beat if you would have just went right. Step in, shoot the mid range. I would rather see you kind of brick those with some than to shoot like a sidestep or contested three. Because you were 3 of 9 overall, and you hit a couple of those. You're showing to be really, really good at hitting those. Killian's showing really good to be able to hit those mid range kind of floaters. I used to short arm those a lot. Now he's showing to be able to put those over the rim just a little bit better over the last few games. Let me see here. More particularly, Killian Hayes' last 10 games. I know in the season he's averaging 6.4 points, 2.4 rebounds, 4.1 assists. But over his last 10 games, Killian Hayes is averaging 10 points per game, 1.2 steals per game, 5 assists, 2.5 rebounds, 30 almost 38% from three and 40% from the field in 27 minutes. He's hooping. I want to see him get that up, like I said, to about 12, 5, and 5. The rebounds got to go up. When he plays with the starters, I see his rebounds go down a little bit more. So with K being out, I've noticed that that's affected his rebounding. I think that there's a little less for him to focus on, especially when he's defending at the perimeter as a primary defender, as well as sometimes finding himself as a primary 1 or 2 with K Cunningham being out. But I did wanted to point that out. There was something I had in my notes, and I want to continue to see him follow this trend, man. Continue to get there as it relates to being that guy. Being that guy that this team can depend on. Like the Nets used to be able to depend on Jason Kidd. A poor man's Jason Kidd. I'm not saying he's gonna get to, that Hall of Fame level that the career that Jason Kidd's had. I don't think he's going to necessarily get to that level, but I believe as it relates to his effect on the court, being able to stuff the stat sheet, being able to be dependable, being able to know, I can be your top 1 or 2 perimeter defender any night and switch really the 1 through 3 and in a pinch, defend a 4 and get back. If I'm defending a 5, show and get back. That's something I think Killian Hayes can be. And 9 assists last night, huge, man, huge. The other aspects, Giannis Alec Burks and Kevin Knox, again, just to reiterate, and everybody pretty much played their roles. They scrapped, they hustled, they forced a lot of turnovers out of the Denver Nuggets. And this is what you want to see more out of this team. And that's why I've kind of allowed this game to be the model or the precipice of what we're going to talk about for this whole pretty much episode. The other thing I want to talk about is this. Does Jalen Duren need more time? Last night was a step in the right direction. He's averaging 22 minutes. A lot of people say, well, he's foul happy. You want to keep him in check because of his fouls. He's only averaging 2.2 fouls per game. Up until this point, I thought he should be getting a little bit more time, whether he's starting or not. I've been kind of following this trend the whole season. And I know that Coach Casey and I got to ask him a couple times about the 2 big rotation and about the challenges of managing the bigs. He has talked about, when we get our bigs healthy, then we will see the minutes aplenty for them all. But right now, with only 2 bigs, we have to kind of manage these minutes accordingly. And between Bagley and Duren last night, they got about 48 minutes combined. I believe there's a few more minutes to squeeze out there, but you can't really argue in a win like last night. And you see Duren with 16 minutes in the second half. That means he played just about a quarter and a third out of the 2 quarters available in the second half. And so it's proven true to what Dwayne Casey said. A lot of times the guy who starts that game is not necessarily who finishes the game. Who finishes is who he believes gives his team the best chance to win. And Jalen Duren did that last night. He really did. I do believe he deserves more time. And if last night is any indication, that's where I believe he deserves to be around. Somewhere between that 27, 28 minutes per game. That means he's getting between 25 and 32, 33 minutes a game anywhere on a nightly basis. And if he's doing really good, obviously you float him to that 32, 33 minutes a game. If he's kind of having a pedestrian night offensively, but he's affecting the game in other areas, give him that 25 to 30. Jalen Duren's last 10, I wanted to bring that up here on the season. He's averaging 7 points and 7.4 rebounds a game. You want to see his assists go up with his ability, and he'll get that as he gets more post looks. But over his last 10, 6.4 points. He's got his rebounds up to 8. His assists are up as well, 0.7 assists per game, and his blocks and steals are just about out of 1 apiece. That would put him at just about 2. So he's about a 1.6 stocks per game. I want to see Jalen Duren get to 2 stocks per game. That's steals plus blocks. That was something that Andre Drummond was really, really, really good at, and he was actually top 10 in the league for a lot of years in Detroit. Number one as a big man, top 10 in the league for blocks and steals. That's the challenge and the gauntlet that I want to throw out there to Jalen Duren. Get there, big fella, because I know that you can do it. I know that he can do that. But do you guys believe that he deserves more time? I want to close on something, on a couple points here. Um, Stanley Johnson had some interesting comments to say. He had some real interesting comments. And we're going to get to that about the organization because it's something that I've talked about all summer, and I believe that it's affected a lot of players that's come before this regime, and why this current restoration is going about things the way that they're doing it. We'll just get into it now. Stanley Johnson, he talked about wanting to rewrite the wrongs of Detroit's past. And I'm gonna bring up the article here in a little bit because I don't want to misquote anything. I really don't. Um, he said he'd love to right the wrong with the franchise. He talked about the fact that the Pistons showed him a ton of love. Let's see here. Let's get this thing open now. Man, where'd he go here? Because I want to make sure I quote this man right. I don't want to misquote Stanley. He went through a lot here already. He talked about that. And he talked about what he was going through in the beginning. He went through a lot of trauma here with Detroit early on. I don't want to necessarily rehash a lot of it. You can and it's simply because it's a lot. You can research his history and you can understand that he was dealing with a whole lot. Shout out to Andre Drummond who allowed Stanley Johnson to stay with him early on in his career. It shows the arc of Andre Drummond, who also was affected by a lack of organizational stability here. Detroit was when Tom Gores took over this team. Before Tom Gores took over this team, the organizational stability was shuttered with the passing of a great owner, Bill Davison, who pioneered a lot in this league, including chartering his own plane, Round Ball One, to take the Pistons all over. Man, he pioneered a lot. His own stadium out in the suburbs. Man, he was doing his own thing, really, and he was winning his own way, and he didn't care about what anybody thought about it you know. But when he passed away and the team wanted to sell and they put a stop really on any major moves and they had that Josh Smith albatross contract on the books, it really, really, really stunted a lot. Andre Drummond came into an organization that went through head coaches and general managers, bro. Like how I really, really, really go through Skittles, dog. Give it to me. I can, and it's down. Give me the next bag. What is it? What is it that you guys can do that with? What is it that you know what? I can go through this. I can go through this like that. You put it on my plate, it's gone. That's how the Pistons was doing this thing, man. It was like one day they had Lawrence Frank, then they had Mo Cheeks, then they had, I don't know, bro, a bunch of interims. It was awful, dog. It was awful. And Andre Drummond didn't have nobody to really help him. He came into a situation with Greg Monroe and Josh Smith, bro, with these bigs here. It was terrible, terrible, as Charles would say. And then Stanley Johnson was drafted into something that, it was a little bit better, but it wasn't much better. It wasn't much better. Somebody asked, I want to make sure I get this out here on Twitter. Johnny B. J. Bashar 92 asked Stanley Johnson, what do you think of the current Pistons core under Weaver? Do you think if you were drafted and a part of this group, your career would have started better? He said, yes. I think the group is amazing. Casey is amazing. Everything over there is great. We just didn't figure it out. I'm 26. I'd love to right the wrong. Detroit loved doing me crazy. The organization did too. I had a lot of growing up and trauma to deal with at 18, 19. It's been that long since we drafted Stanley Johnson, about 7 years since then, man. Wow, it's been a lot of time. And I'm glad that at our peak during this time here, it was with him and that infamous, I think I'm in LeBron James' head because you could see the talent. You could see it. He was defensively going out there every night to make sure that people knew he existed. It probably wasn't the best thing to say. It probably wasn't even the most accurate thing to say. But I think after that, it was something in which people said, you know what? This guy, he at least gets it. He tries. He's trying to get after it on the defensive end. But it was just too much, man. Too much. They were trying to win on the fly when in reality, this team should have probably focused a little bit more on the development of their younger guys and ways to put them in their best positions to succeed. And so, when I listen to this, it speaks, it just speaks to my soul because this is what I was talking about all offseason. People want to harp on what Drummond was or wasn't. I'm like, guys, what Drummond was or wasn't to a degree is on him. But this guy grew like 7 inches between his senior year and his freshman year in college, 6 or 7 years or something, like 6 or 7 inches, something like that, man. He had a crazy growth spurt. His college coach, Jim Calhoun, who was recruiting him at UConn, wound up getting he was out for the year. I don't know if it was sickness, I forget exactly what it was, but he was out for the year, out for the season, dog. So it was just Drummond just down there allowed to do what he wants to do. He wasn't taught how to be a big man with versatility. When he got to the Pistons, you heard Joe Dumars talk about the level of versatility that this guy had, and that's because before Drummond hit that growth spurt, he had a little bit of wiggle to his game, man, a little bit of sauce to it. You could look at his old, highlights and replays and things like that from high school, and you could see he had the ability to take the ball coast to coast. When people see that in NBA, well, if you're not as polished, if you're not working at that, if someone's not helping you, someone's not developing you, somebody's not even teaching you even the right muscle groups to develop, that's what blew my mind in college when I got an actual trainer who was trained in this. Man, my trainer went to the University of Minnesota. That's where she was got her degree and everything. She actually went back there to start working there a few years after I graduated. And it was amazing the different muscle groups she would teach us how to tone. And sometimes it wasn't even with muscle weights, it was with bands and things. And you would notice, oh, I'm a little bit quicker, a little bit shiftier, can jump a little bit higher, a little bit faster. Those things matter when you're playing with all world, all class athletes. And Andre Drummond never got that. He has so much natural ability, like Jalen Duren has, like Stanley Johnson did. But he never got the fact that you have to fine tune and refine your skills now that you're at this level of basketball, man. That was the biggest difference for me going from high school to college basketball was refinement. You see a lot more skills and you see a lot more sets. You see a lot more guys playing within themselves. But then you get out there on prime level, you realize all these guys will put you on the ground with a crossover quick. All these guys can dunk you. All these guys have a little bit more sauce, a little bit more ice in that game. But the level of skill they have, when you bottle that into plays that are designed to get them open, butter, butter, butter. And that's what happened with Andre Drummond and Stanley Johnson. These guys weren't put into a position that we see our young guys in now. That's why we got to be patient. And I think that's why the Pistons, I call their rebuild, their restoration, a rebranding of the word rebuild. But the more and more I look at it, I think it is a restoration. A rebuild, sometimes, you want to see this thing get to win now as fast as possible. That's why you're rebuilding. If you're rebuilding your house, if it's been burned down, you're not necessarily taking your time. If you're trying to get your car rebuilt because it's your only one that's been, crashed, got into a crash, you're not taking your time. But a restoration, that's something that you take your time with because you're trying to get it right. You're trying to make sure that every aspect of this car is done perfectly. So that even down to the coolant system, which has to operate really, really well in these older engines that may burn hotter, you want to make sure, hey, look, we get into the Motor City of it all, we get into the pistons of it all. You want to make sure that that thing is running like a well-oiled machine, and not just for now, not just for a spurt, not just for a couple playoff appearances like we saw under SVG and one underneath Dwayne Casey. We're looking for longevity, and we're not looking for even just to go into work Pistons, who had longevity in the East for many years, and it had the back-to-back finals appearances and had the win, and probably should have had the second one. Oh, boy, that's how we're looking for a team that can be a program similar to what the San Antonio Spurs look like for years. Even that during their down years, people know they're going to be back. So much so that USA Basketball wanted their program to represent theirs. This is what I see the Pistons doing right now. So the restoration is about restoring to the groundwork that eras like, the bad boys and the going to work eras did as champions. That's the restoration there. You're trying to restore the championship level, as well as a physicality and a level of play, no matter if you're winning or losing, that eras like the bad boys, the Till era, Jerry Stackhouse, those guys brought to the Pistons organization in their history. Those guys deserve to be recognized despite their eras not necessarily being the ones that brought the wins. they were foundational as it relates to the next step up for the Pistons. But yeah, overall, I think that's a show for today. I do want to talk about the best case for Cade, as well as who I believe should start once this thing has all wound down. Now, with Cade, I know that everybody's wondering what's going on with him. In the last show, I talked about the fact that I believe it's stress. I didn't believe it was going to be that big of a deal. You see these guys dealing with shins and such. I remember my college experience as well, pro am, dealing with pros as well. Shout out to Steve Francis, who grew up literally right behind my gym, right behind our college gym. So he donated a lot to our school. He would run pro-ams in our school all the time. And I got an amazing experience. I played with Jeff Green's cousin, actually, Mo Stallion, who he was amazing in his own right, as well as Andre Blatch, who got drafted to the Wizards. I got to play with a couple of his cousins on my college team as well. So it was some really, really good run. We really, really got to see, and get a feel for the pros, for the pro game, even not just speaking it, from a standpoint of just seeing it, but seeing what these guys are actually doing, working out with them, seeing how these guys take care of their bodies from a health standpoint and what so much more. It was an amazing experience. I'm gonna talk about it a little bit more on another platform though. But seeing this, when you work, those shins get shot, especially when you're working with more weight. As you're putting on more muscle, as you're putting on more weight and more physicality, and you're being more physical. When you're jumping, there's more force coming down on those shins. When you're running, when you're taking off, when you're boosting off, when you're trying to get your lift off and all that, there's more force on those shins. And I just don't believe these guys took a break. I think Kay Cunningham said it best when he was coming into year two at media day. He didn't know how to work. He said this year he knew exactly how to work, what to work on, how hard to go, and he was going hard. And they played. They had a lot of run this summer too, a whole lot more run this summer. Coming into his rookie season, he didn't have as much run. It was more or less keeping yourself fresh, keeping yourself healthy. Do your individual runs to get ready for the draft. This year, it was kind of all over the place and he was getting that run in. Um, and so yeah, there's gonna be a lot more stress on his body. Now, people saw him shooting around after the Sacramento Kings game. After the reports of the Pistons mulling between K Cunningham and his camp, if they should take a surgical route, a rest route, and or if he should be shut down for a long period of time, or for the full season. I don't believe he should be shut down for the full season personally, but obviously that's for the medical staff, Pistons, and K Cunningham staff to decide to figure out. But if as long as he can still practice, kind of go through some motions and such, I think it's good to have him out there, even if he does not play. I believe it's good to have him out there. You see him on the sidelines. You saw him last night with a good gesture. The Pistons posted this first, and we got it up on our Woodward Pistons as well. He went and got these jerseys of two fans who are out there with these Jaden Ivey jerseys on, and you can see behind him is some Purdue people, some Purdue uniforms or hoodies as well. And Kay went out there, talked to them for a minute, and you just see their face like, and they're taking off their jerseys, and he goes and he runs to the back and gets them signed by Jaden Ivey. Dog, this man is still the leader on and off the court. He's doing work. Shout out to Cade Cunningham for that. This is Arcade Zone. He's still finding a way to be the best guy, period. And he does it at his own pace. He does it in his own methodical way. And he still continues to just exude greatness. He just does. I can't wait to see what the team is going to look like when he gets back. My starters, when they get back, I do believe this. I believe that Isaiah Stewart has earned the right to start because of what he brings on both ends of the court. I do believe that this offense works much better with Marvin Bagley in as a pick and roll guy, but I think that Jalen Duren is starting to give just enough to the point that when they're completely healthy, I do believe that the starters should be Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, Bojan Bogdanovic, Jalen Duren. I'm sorry, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren. I believe that should be the starting five. Now, look, I know what people are going to say. A lot of people are down on Sadiq Bey right now, starting. I do believe that Bojan Bogdanovic can contribute what he contributes at any point in time in the game. I believe a Sadiq Bey, see what you have, and you can sub him out early, similar to what they were doing earlier in the season when they were running him with the bench. Ultimately, long term, I don't know, man. Sheesh, man. How good Boyan is sometimes is awesome. It's awesome. but it's hard to find the shots for some of the other guys. If your offense is just go to Bojan to start the game, then you start him. If that's your offense and you believe, you know what, we can compete. Like last night, they did that. They competed in the first quarter simply because they went to Bojan, and it's tough. Goodness, it's tough because I don't want to see Sadiq Bey get buried. I don't want to see his confidence get buried, which I don't believe it will. But offensively, if his team gets off to a good start, what happens to Sadiq Bey? Because it's tough to play him and Bojan together. Or do you just bring him in to spell Bojan? I don't know. But let me know what you want those starters to be. Obviously, as it relates to how these guys are playing, it feels like the lineup should be more like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Bojan Bogdanovic, Marvin Bagley, and Jalen Duren starting. That's a big lineup. That's a lineup that will get you some rebounds. That's a lineup that will cause a little bit of chaos in the paint. And you got, Bojan Bogdanovic, who's going to be composed on the offensive side of things. Defensively, he leaves a little bit to be desired. That's where I believe Sadiq Bey brings a little bit more, and I would like to see him kind of get out and play that role defensively, kind of lean into that more if he can. If he cannot, then you know what? The Pistons are seeing now. These guys who were drafted and as in Troy Weaver's first year, these decisions are being made. These guys are being put in different positions to see who and they can be long term and how they can continue to improve rather than just settling into their deficiencies. Find ways in your strengths and find ways within what you can add to your game to bring more to the table. Otherwise, Trader Troy has no problem. Like with Luke Kennard and Bruce Brown, I think he saw either caps or ways to improve this team or take a step forward. He will do that. Saban Lee saw a way to take a step forward. He will do that. And if this team is in a position to finally start competing for the play-in, because Cade Cunningham is not trying to be a loser in year 3. Even if this team is losing, he's trying to make sure that they cash in on these promises. It wasn't just the front office and the coaches who stated they were ready to compete every night. It was the players who took it a step further and said that they were ready to compete for the play-in. So year 3, you want to see this team competitive. Year 3, you want to see this team really, really be able to get after it. But yeah, it's a lot to like. Again, my star of the game last night would be, you would have to go naturally with Bojan Bogdanovic with just everything he did. But I believe that Jalen Duren was the X factor, especially in the second half of that game. He played 16 strong minutes, and he just kind of was all over the court last night. Yeah, defensively, offensively, he set good picks for the guys that were out there. He found himself, in the rebounds, mucking it up a little bit. He found himself on the offensive glass, hitting it hard, getting extra opportunities for the Pistons. These are the things that we saw Andre Drummond do so well, and certain things that we don't see the team this year doing well overall. I believe Jalen Duren has that opportunity to really, really lean into being that 10 and 10, type of guy very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. But yeah, I think that's a wrap for today, man, on this Woodward Pistons podcast. Shout out to the Pistons again for really, really, really bearing a lot of demons last night with that win over Denver. Again, that's the first time they've won there since 2016. They break a 7-game losing streak, and they win their first game on the road. Shout out to my homie Jeff Iafredi on the Morning Woodward Show right now, as well as get that drum roll going. Hey, yo, shout out Detroit News, Rod Beard. Till next time, you all. We got some more content on the way. We got Kool-Aid and Murph coming. We got Terry Foster coming, bro, to the channel. It's going to be an awesome time. And with Terry Foster, we're going to be dealing with a little bit more than just Pistons, man. A little bit of Kool-Aid of it all. A little bit of Detroit Kool-Aid. Hey, what else do we got on the docket for you guys? We do got some more programming. We'll talk about it later. Some debates in the works. I think you guys going to like it. But you guys tell me, hey, yo, shout out Rogelio, Woodward Tigers in the building. Hey, but definitely, man, you guys tell me what you liked about that game. Tell me what you want to see out of these starters, especially when they get healthy. What would you like to see out of Cade Cunningham, Sit? You want to see this team tank? You want to see them let Jaden Ivey kind of get his ability his first year to be that guy. I like seeing him at the one sometimes. It's been awesome. I thought he showed great ability last night despite being a little off in the shooting department. So overall, I thought there was some good things there. And definitely check out woodwardsports.com. We have some good Piston stuff up, as well as Detroit Lions, Red Wings, and Tigers articles, content, and everything else that you could want from your Detroit sports coverage. Till next time, for Woodward Pistons, for Woodward Sports, my name is Detroit Kool-Aid.